Good to go. All right, so the first thing that you can do is, of course, open up Adobe Illustrator. And what's nice about this program, if you're not familiar with it, is it now opens up a lot of different files. So for instance, actually one of the first things that we're doing in my class is I gave them basically a Rhino line file, basically an elevation, basic elevation. And the reason I'm showing you this is because it's already on my YouTube page. So if you're unfamiliar with my YouTube page, it's Chris V Peace, as in world peace. You can just search that up. It goes right to it. I think you can just type in Chris Barrett also, and it goes right to it. But you're more than welcome to follow along with this assignment as well. Now, I'm not going to make it part of our rotation. I'm going to kind of try and stick to y'all's studio work, obviously site related. And Escamilla is actually specifically, and Kuwabara has asked me to just show you the first tools of aligning something, right? Whether it be an image and an object in Illustrator. So again, we're going to start off pretty small. But one of the first things that we can do, luckily in Illustrator, is we can open up a DWG file. So that one that, of course, Will and Shania took care of for me. I can basically go to File, Open, and find that DWG. So I'm going to go to my hard drive, CVP. Yep, that's Chris V Peace. I've had the same username since like 12, so couldn't stop. Where are we at? Image of Broadway, sweet. DWG, looks like the recovery file. It's gone through a lot, and that's okay. I'm going to scale to fit artboard right now, just because most digital cases are scaled at 1:1. So if I just import that to scale, it's going to be like this big. It's going to go off the page. I might not even see the damn thing because it's the size of miles, right? So in my case, I want to scale to fit the artboard first. However, if I knew the scale that I wanted to go to, I could always do that as well, right? So it is set into inches. And very easily, if I knew that it was in feet, I could say, well, I want 4 feet to equal 1 inch, right? And that's, of course, how I could do that. If I wanted 16 feet, I could say 16 feet per inch. And hopefully that right there even saves you a lot of time. Because what's nice is it asks you about the scale at the beginning, right? However, again, for today, I'm just going to scale to fit artboard because honestly, it's unknown. I've never looked at this DWG in my life, so I don't want to cause a problem for my computer, and I can always show you how to scale it manually. So we're going to go ahead and press OK, and by default, it looks pretty small. Do you guys know how big it's supposed to be? I'm guessing it's this piece right here. What scale? 1/8? This is supposed to be 1/8? Gotcha. So yeah, if it's actually already scaled, let me just show you what it looks like when we open it within that other scaling program. So we'll take that. Obviously it's going, hey, you're opening up the same file. Do you want to open up the same file? Yeah, hold on. Gotta close it again. Go ahead and open recent, and it's gonna ask me again. I can choose original size if it's already scaled, like you guys just said. It's already at 1/8 scale, so might as well use original size. Go ahead and press OK. However, something tells me maybe not. Right? And the way that Illustrator works is, well, it takes the units, and that unit is just 1. It doesn't know if it means pixels, it doesn't know if it means inches, and things like that. So I think I accidentally had it set to pixels. So don't know if you guys caught that, but watch closely if I open it. You'll see that by default it's at points, so be very careful. You want to immediately put it to inches and press OK. However, it's still absolutely tiny because, well, I guess that's the actual size. However, we can fix it there too, not a big deal. We just need to know one thing about our drawing, and that's essentially just something, right? Obviously I can hold shift to keep things proportional, just like any other program. And essentially what I'm going to do at first is just align my bounding box, if you will, with some of these other pieces. And it looks like there's actually quite a bit in this file, so I'm just going to get rid of the things that it doesn't look like I really need them. Honestly, all I'm doing here is holding shift and scaling up some lines, right? Again, these are always movable, so pretty nice. But yeah, right away, dead giveaway, we can't really see anything. And I do want to mention a few things just because this may be our very first time in Illustrator. And you may be getting familiar to the differences between Photoshop as well. My favorite tool is, of course, in the top right hand corner. is this little guy. You do want to make sure that you're in Essentials Classic. And if you've already got a bunch of tools going on, you don't really know what's going on, or maybe you accidentally got rid of a tool or a window, you can always reset Essentials Classic. And I gotta admit, I like that a lot, because then I can pull out the tools that I want and put them in the area that I want them. So in my case, layers is definitely important. Definitely gonna be using that today. Stroke and line weight, so definitely want the stroke. Not the strokes, the band, but they're pretty good too. Dang, no Friday jokes today. All right. Anyway, so we got our tools set, and we can start taking a look at this drawing. I guess the first thing, of course, we want to do in architecture is to scale this drawing to something. Now, what that requires is some known measurement, and that's not really a big deal. Most of the time, I stick to, say, the edge and the edge of a street. Does anybody, or even a sidewalk? Sometimes there's a door, but not usually at something this large in scale. Does anybody know a certain measurement of this drawing? Such as the street width, sidewalk width, anything. Even if you can kind of Google it for me real quick and just use your measuring tool. Well, actually, never mind. Don't show me. I want to show you how to find it, actually. Let's go ahead and do that. Because the first thing I want to do is actually very subtly put the Google image behind my lines, right? Because I may want to actually use that image, or for instance, I may actually do an analog trace myself and want to scan that and put some good lines on it. Or I might want to print out these lines and do my own trees and maybe line up that tree diagram. Or maybe I want to do a sun diagram, wind diagram. Maybe I want to do topography by hand. I'd really recommend, I don't know about you, but I'm a lot faster in my freehand skills. I could get this, I could stretch a piece of trace on it, and I could knock it out, right? I could scan that large drawing with a $30,000 scanner that we have now. We have 2 of them now. It's amazing. So you could even scan that. Well, don't scan trace paper. You should always put trace paper on bond paper, then scan it through. Otherwise you risk crushing your drawing because it's trace, right? But that being said, there's numbers of ways we could use this, right? Whether it be printing it out, drawing it ourselves and scanning it into Illustrator, or like what I'm going to do today is simply put a digital drawing such as the Google background under our lines. So obviously many different ways to use this. So before I get started with the scaling, I'm going to do Command R or Control R, and it's going to bring up my rulers, right? So if you're on the Mac, it's Command R. You can right click on here and of course change its units to inches. And right away it tells us, you know, it's about a 26-inch page by about 15 inches, which looks pretty close to actually what's on the table image-wise. So let's go ahead and find that. Now in my case, I'll want to find Google Earth. And I'd want to basically find this background shot. Do you guys already have the Google image of this? Or did you just get the DWG?
I think we got the image of that and then we got the DWG.
And you didn't give it to me. It's okay. We'll find it actually right now. It might take me a second, unless you guys have a specific address. O'Neill Ford Building. I don't think I could type that into Google, but we can try. We could try. Mankey Park. Okay. We can also wait for the world's slowest internet. Wait for it. Mankey Parks and whee. Let me know if I'm in the right spot. All right. And what is it that we're actually getting today? I mean, in terms of this DWG. Let's see. That looks like the park right there. Is that right? Breckenridge. Is that y'all's site right here? Gotcha. Well, keep in mind, guys, this is just a tutorial. And really, all my tutorials, you should never just be like, okay, I'm going to copy for red perfectly. That's not the point. It's really just to teach the tools. And very often, I'm going actually through them really fast. So hopefully, you're not doing what I'm doing. I'm just trying to give some inspiration and ideas of how to work the tools. But in our case, we do need a base image. And since we don't have a measurement yet, right, we can also do that. So we can actually do a measurement. I typically do it off to the side. That way I can scale it and then sort of keep it off the page. Nobody likes to see the gigantic measurement, line that's on there. So, well, we're gonna find out. But yeah, let's do it. But if it needs to be at 1 to 30, let's make it 1 to 30. And like I said, if this is y'all's site, I kind of want to go off into the distance. And in my case, it makes a lot of sense to find 30 feet because, well, all I have to do is make this line equal. Anybody know? If I'm doing 1 to 30, how much do I have to make this line equal? 30 feet, very good. However, I know you can't press done because it goes away, doesn't it? Oh wait, thank goodness it stayed there. It's if you hit this X that it goes away, so. Let me position this a little bit better. Basically, we just need to take a screenshot. And to be fair, there's a number of ways we could do this. If you wanted a really good screenshot from Google Earth, you're definitely gonna photo merge it. You guys remember me ever talking about photo merge? So basically, I would take a couple of screenshots like this. Actually, let's just do it today. I mean, why not? For some of us, you may have never done photo merge. So in my case, I'm gonna photo merge this today. I want a really good shot. But I'm gonna make sure that I get my measurement in there. Pretty good. I'm going to scroll off to the side and basically take another shot. On the Mac, you could do Command Shift and the number 4, and it's going to immediately bring up your snapshot tool. Obviously, I'm trying to avoid some of the irregularities. Right, of course, I want to get the site. As much as possible. So we're going to go over a few things today. Photo merge, just in case I haven't gone over it. And the rest of the site plan. However, if you already had the image, that's good too. But if you don't know how to make that image, here you go. And especially a good one. Because, I mean, let's face it, you get a lot more detail if I photo merge something this close, right? If I photo merge a little bit further, I can definitely grab a lot more, right? And I don't necessarily have to just stick to my screen either, right? Because let's face it, at this zoom level, like if I'm way zoomed out, that screenshot can only get so big. If I increase that screenshot, it's just going to get pixelated, right? So I'm going to use this photo merging method. So I've got my measurement, I've got my space in place. I just need to photo merge my image real quick and make sure that my measurement is in there and everything like that. Today, Photoshop. What is that? Come on. Well, what's funny is today is actually the last day I'm going to use this computer. I ordered a new one and it hasn't come in yet, so kind of just waiting. But this one's 6 years old, so screen recording and doing all this stuff at the same time is really not proficient anymore. However, it still runs really great, as when you're not recording your screen. But yeah, if you want a $400 MacBook Pro, let me know. That's what I'm going to sell it for. Just don't screen record while you're doing all these programs and you'll be absolutely fine. So let's go ahead and File, Automate. Just in case you've never seen this process. Yep, File, Automate, and Photo Merge. So in my case, I just need to take those screenshots and browse for them. This should be on my desktop, nice and orderly. I'm gonna go ahead and press open. As long as it's on automatic, I can press OK. And we can kind of wait for that process to happen. Not super important how it does it, why it does it, but the fact that it does is so great. And now it's a nice big choppy shot based on kind of those little pieces that we got. Keep in mind, we probably don't need this whole thing. You guys probably know this, your project, of course, a lot better than I do. But I'm just going to size it for the sake of sizing it. I don't want to remove my measurement. I do need that piece. And we probably don't need that much of the park, or at least what it looked like. Probably don't need that much over here and that much over there. But now we have this really nice non-pixelated shot, right? Of course, we need to flatten it first. And I'm pretty sure, let's see, the whole reason I even wanted to show you guys is because there's a brilliant thing between Photoshop and Illustrator that you can usually just drag. Maybe not on my MacBook though. Let's try this. I'm gonna click on my layer itself, my background layer. Well, I'm gonna unlock it too, just in case. I'm gonna do Command C for copy. I'm gonna see if I can paste it in here. I've never tried. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a selection tool too. But you can copy it, right? Copy and paste. Thought you could. Maybe you can't anymore. I know it goes, yeah. Oh, there you go. Just took a while. But great. You know, don't get me wrong. I could also do a couple things in Photoshop too. I mean, for instance, one of my favorite things to do, and just to kind of show you, like if this is my site, and obviously I'm making it up real quick, but let's say that was my site. I love selecting the inverse and then actually, you know, making it less vibrant on the outside. So, well, technically more vibrant, and then desaturated. So that way everybody kind of sees what's going on in my particular part. Though it's not doing it. Hold on. Adjustments. Even like a black and white situation. Automatic. But then my site is still in color, right? Yeah, it sticks out a little bit more, right? To be fair, you'd probably want it to stick out even more than that. Adjustments, go with some vibrance. Yeah, I mean, you could really saturate it. But yeah, it definitely starts to go, oh, I see the site you're talking about, right? And even that, I could start to manipulate. So I'm going to actually use that today. I know that's not your site, I'm sorry, but maybe it's close. Hopefully so. Let's take that image again. So I'm going to copy it with my new piece and paste it in. And what's funny is it actually replaces the one that I did. I don't know if it actually makes two. Sweet, made two. So I can, of course, get rid of the first one. And now I'm pretty set up, right? I've got at least my scale inside of this. I just need to figure out what an inch is. So now that I have my rulers up, and again, if you don't have your rulers, Command R. And if you actually click into this piece, just like Photoshop or InDesign, you can take these grids out. And of course you can hold Shift and it'll lock on to the particular measurement as well. So in my case, we do need an inch first. So I'm gonna get as close as possible. Looks like an inch. Of course, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. And what's nice is once you're zooming in, the grid also changes a little bit. So you can, of course, double check those. And when you move the line, you'll see that there's a little box that comes up and tells you quite literally the exact accuracy. And even the one starts to like flicker a little bit so that you know that you're hitting it on the right point. So the grids are good. I have an inch settled. Now I need to make this image match, right? So in my case, my measurement is right down at the corner, right there. So obviously this image needs to get way bigger. And if you're doing this from Google Earth, you definitely want the midpoint of this circle, right? Definitely something you're probably familiar with. But just like Rhino or any other program, sorry, I don't know why every time I zoom in it goes right to the middle of my image. Anyway, I want to take that piece and basically scale it. Now, I don't have a magic button for this, so I usually just kind of eyeball it, right? Obviously, I need to get way bigger. It was like half the size. Technically, I could right-click on it, I could transform, and I could change the scale, right? So, I mean, right now I can go from 100% to 125%, but I don't necessarily know that exact ratio. However, if you're sizing something double, what do you do? 200%. If I'm half sizing something, what do you do? 50%. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, when it's in the right math, it makes a lot of sense to use it. However, for what we're doing today at 1 to 30, I'm not going to sit there and figure out the math for 1 to 30 and, you know, things like that. So I'm just going to, in the words of great Escamilla, fake it till I make it, but with an impeccable accuracy, right? Because we obviously want to make this to scale. So I don't have a large screen, so. And dang, almost nailed it. I went a little too big. Probably didn't need that extra 125%. But. Another thing that you can do is, of course, hold the space bar, just like any of the Adobe programs, and you can pan when your computer doesn't suck. There we go. Zoom in. And again, all I'm doing right now is making sure my background image is to scale first. Yeah, pretty close, a little bit smaller. So again, make sure that you hold shift so that it stays proportional. And again, I'm just lining up the two midpoints of those circles. Still pretty big. And just making it a little bit smaller each time. I hate that it goes to the center of the image every time that I zoom in, but that's Illustrator for you. Anyway, for the sake of tutorial, I'm going to say that's pretty dang close. So we've made that 30 feet equal 1 inch. We are now to scale, right? If we print out this PDF, it will be 1 inch equals 30 feet, at least according to Google. And to be fair, you know, I know a lot of people think that they're satellites, right? But they're actually high altitude remote planes now called, you guys may have seen it. Did you guys see it was like a couple of years ago, there was a Chinese satellite floating and they shot it down. The balloon, right? Those are actually satellites. Those are the things that are actually taking pictures. A lot of pictures, and then they photo merge them to make one really big shot for Google Earth. That way you can zoom in and zoom out. But yeah, it's not a satellite in space. They don't use it for that. In fact, most of our internet is transferred through undersea ocean cable, but different story for a different day. Anyway, so we got a scaled image. We're looking good. The next thing that we got to get scaled is, of course, this guy. But now that it's scaled, you know, I got a lot of image going on. You know, I don't even want to show that much image. In fact, I want to maybe kind of hybridize. I kind of want to show some of my lines, and then maybe it gets a little more quote-unquote realistic as it gets towards the site itself. So I'm going to get a little fancy with the spices. And most people use squares, but you know, I'm feeling cool today. I'm going to use a circle. So I'm going to go with my ellipse tool. And of course, an ellipse, proportional makes a perfect circle. So I kind of just want like a certain radius. I don't know, if I was being kind of clever about it, maybe I'd use this radius to actually show some information in my drawing or something like that. But one of the first things that we can do in Illustrator is, of course, take that boundary. Sorry, we'll use my direct tool. We can use that boundary in the image. We can right click and we can make a clipping mask. And what's nice about that is, well, it makes the image a lot easier to look at, but now there's something quite nice about it, right? Probably should have gone with a smaller circle. However, kind of hitting off the page might be kind of nice. I don't know, we'll see. You can do multiple masks is what this is, of course, called. And if you want to release it, you can always right click and release the clipping mask as well. But I find it really useful. That way I can sort of hone in the drawing and make my lines work a little in my favor. So in my case, I know I definitely want this image at the background of my drawing. So first thing I need to do is basically put it back there. And we got a lot of layers to work with, and that's okay. I'm gonna make a new one, drag it all the way down. Because, well, where it is it's just like Photoshop. So if it's on the bottom layer, it's in the back of the page. If it's a top layer, it's on top of the page, right? And that's basically how you arrange things, of course, just like many other programs. So, hey Kat, how's it going? Where was I? Oh yeah, let's work with the lines and get this guy in there. So another thing about Illustrator is that by default, it'll be on your basic layer. And what's nice is if you click on this color box and you scroll it down, like drag it, you can basically put it in any other layer, and I really wish other programs would get on board. But I basically can just drag it to this layer. I can call this my background image layer. And we can even turn it off when needed or unneeded, right? Obviously my computer's a little slow at that. Anyway, not too shabby. So now we can work with those lines. That way we don't accidentally change the scale of what we just established, right? However, now we got to get these lines to match what we have. So there's a few extra lines I'm just gonna kind of get rid of. Kind of some of those boundary lines going on. I no longer really need my grids just because the image is set. And now I got to get this to line up with my drawing. So, well, I need it to be to scale, so I might as well turn my image back on. And another thing that's nice is if you want to click on everything that is inside this layer, you can also click on that invisible box. I know that's really redundant to say, yeah, click on this box that doesn't exist. It's right next to the layer, but it highlights everything within this layer. And what's nice is, well, we need that so that we can give it some transparency and start lining up some of these lines. In fact, they're a little hard to see, so I may really want to change those first. We'll turn off my image real quick. And really it's all these guys. So first things first, I'm just going to make it a little easier to see. I'm just change them all. So I'm going to double click on my stroke, and instead of all those wonderful colors going on, I'm going to go with a nice dark color. Of course it's going to take a second. There's a lot of lines there, but I can definitely see them a lot better and start to align them with my drawing. To be fair, I could probably even make them thicker, but nicely enough they're still in layers, so not a big deal, and that's definitely important. But I'm not a huge fan of bounding boxes, so I'm just going to get rid of those. And they're just kind of getting in the way, so I like for it to kind of bleed off the page. If I didn't want to show it, I wouldn't have shown it. So never put a boundary on your stuff, right? Let the paper be the boundary, right? You already have one, so work with it. But now we got to get those to align together a little bit better. However, we got to align them to the image, right? So that's really important. We don't want to accidentally change the image, so I'm going to go ahead and lock this layer. And what's nice is it tells the computer too, like, hey, stop processing this one too. So usually the computer goes a little bit faster when you lock layers. That's really nice. I wish, again, old Rhino does kind of do that. So it is kind of nice. But yeah, if you notice your computer going slow, always turn off the layers. But in our case, we do want all of these lines, and we do want to make sure that we get all of them. Everything but our image, essentially, and wonderfully, it's locked. And here's honestly the fun part. You know, this is, what do they say? What makes the boys to men and the girls to women is trying to align these up. Now, actually, I did really good. I think I got pretty close. Oh wait, maybe I'm just aligning to my own lines. However, we got a lot of lines going on, so I'm gonna group them just because I don't want to accidentally, you know, one of those lines might get out of the way and I might be sizing this thing and suddenly I've got random lines that are missing from my drawing and they're at different sizes. So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that I group everything by going to Object and Group, right? So now what's really nice is, of course, once that loads, if I click on this object, it's gonna click all of it, thank goodness, right? So I really can't mess up now. So even if I move it over here, it's gonna take, of course, all of those lines because they're in a group. Now, in your case, I would probably pick something that somewhat stands out, you know, something that's kind of familiar. And since this is pretty new to me, it might take me a second. Let's see if we can find any information here. I'm looking for that sidewalk hardcore. I'm thinking it's that sidewalk, isn't it? Right there? Sweet. So, I mean, we're getting pretty close already. Now, I can do Command plus sign to zoom in, or Command minus sign to zoom out. That's definitely the way I prefer to use the piece. But in our case, we got to make something line up, and it looks like we got to make the line smaller. At least according to this page, and according to this image. So I'm going to hold Shift, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, and go from there. As you can see, the faster computer you have, the easier Illustrator can be to work with. To be fair, I don't think Illustrator was ever made for a laptop. Oh, and definitely I was going the wrong way. Actually, I was already too small. Let's make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to zoom out and make that a little bit bigger. Again, hold shift. Don't forget it. You know, I always think of that SpongeBob line where he's like, step on your right foot, don't forget it. That's definitely what you would say for Illustrator and holding shift, because it's very easy to think that you're in proportion and you're not, right? Especially since Illustrator can take a little while to load if you're on a 2018 computer. Screen recording, yeah, that'll slow you down. But hopefully you shouldn't have any problems with anything 2018 or above. Looks like we got to go way bigger for the lines. And you'll see it starts to kind of mess with your image a little bit, the graphics and things like that. But if you zoom out, should be able to fix some things. Not sure why my image came undone. Yeah, clearly my computer's it's experiencing some issues, but that's okay. Hang in there, bud. Again, hold shift, don't forget it. See, you're never gonna forget that now, especially if you're a SpongeBob fan. But again, just finding a familiar element so that I can align those a little bit better. And it looks like I gotta go way bigger. Holding shift. Go big or go home, as they say. Luckily it's grouped, so not really having any issues there. We're getting really close, just a little bit bigger. And this process is probably maybe the hardest part. So to be fair, even then it's not that hard. And once you get actually down and good at it with some good practice and kind of knowing your computer and its speeds, it's a relatively quick process. Man, so close. Just a little bit bigger. Of course, you can take it from any of these anchor points, which is kind of nice. Again, always holding shift. You can do it to where holding shift actually makes it unproportional, just in case you're tired of holding shift. There are some options like that. Man, still just a little too small. Ever so slightly. Ever so slightly. Take that piece again. And just slightly bigger. Obviously, you might know your site a little bit better and have no issue with this. Since it's kind of my first time, at least with this specific one, it is taking a little bit. But let's say we dialed it in, it looks good. We're actually fairly close. Not too shabby. At least for tutorial's sake, yours will be much more perfect and on the dot, right? But now we're getting somewhere, right? And another thing that's kind of nice is, well, you guys might see that there's kind of lines outside the page as well. So what is pretty nice is we can use our rectangle tool. Select rectangle tool. I'm going to use my piece itself. And I'm pretty sure we could use a clipping mask also to our lines. So we'll take our group and our clipping lines and see if we can make a clipping mask. Sometimes it works, especially on lines, sometimes it doesn't. And it did. Works great. I think I want to get another one actually in there so I can clip the rest of that circle. I don't know. I'm pretty OCD about stuff. So like when I see the image coming out of the page, it freaks me out a little bit. I do have it locked, that's why I can't click on it. So do make sure you don't have things locked. We'll take those pieces, right click, make clipping mask. Fantastic. But now I have something I can even print out and draw right on top of. I even have the lines already ready to go and can get some things. Another thing that I could take is, well, I can go ahead and ungroup this. So, say these pieces and ungroup. Okay. However, you can also go to object and ungroup as well. So that's going to ungroup for us. And again, we could double check some things, kind of go back and forth. We can draw on this ourselves with the pen tool, and I'll probably go over that maybe in like a part 2. But yeah, we could definitely use a pen tool. We can draw some stuff in. First things first, I want to take care of some line weight, and then maybe show you a little bit of the live bucket tool, and we'll end it there for today. But as you can see, I kind of already have a hybrid situation. I have lines, I got an underneath image, and to be fair, I could even print this out and draw on it and scan it back in and Photoshop it. Nobody would ever know how many different tools that I used in order to make that communication. Now, the reason that I would do this, I just want to point out, you know, there might be some information in my site plan where this image gets in the way. I don't really need to see the, excuse my language, the MF trees, right? Because we have so many in San Antonio, and usually they're all around our site, specifically this one where you got Bracken Ridge to this side. It might be a lot easier to communicate just a large text right here, Bracken Ridge Park, right? Maybe not that big, right? Wow, it's really having a hard time today. I typed in park, but it's still like waiting for it. Oh, maybe it's just really small. There we go. So some of this stuff, obviously I'm trying to allow for other communications to come about, right? Obviously not these tiny little things that say park. And to be fair, it's starting to get other pieces. So, oh, don't want to accidentally lose that. We'll go ahead and put that on my image, my background image shot. Sweet. That way I can, of course, lock it, and I don't accidentally delete anything that I don't need to. You'll see that it's actually quite hard to select something though in Illustrator. So be quite careful. Like I said, not really one of my favorite programs to use, except as a tool. I love using it to print out stuff so that I can draw onto it and put my own layers into. That's just the way I use it. Don't get me wrong, some people, they don't like to draw. I totally understand that. But again, I want to focus on how we can get SAC kind of a hybridized, it's something that kind of started in the 90s, this idea of hybridizing architectural drawings. Dang it. Maybe I accidentally stuck it in there. I don't know what's going on. Can't click on it. Let's find out. It's a piece. There we go. And let's change the size dramatically. Yeah, there we go. I like how it does stuff in real time now too. Of course, we can object transform it and rotate it. We'll rotate it 90 degrees. And obviously it rotated 90 degrees the wrong way. So we can use negative 90 degrees too. Transform, rotate. And we're back to where we started. But not sure why it's only a P now. Oh, there we go. Oh, we got a lot going on. Oh, I see what's going on. We got a weird text box situation. Anyway, I didn't want to go into isolation mode and confuse the heck out of you, but you can double click on items and specifically edit them with an isolation mode. Don't necessarily use that too often, especially on my own projects. It's usually when I'm editing somebody else's PDF. But there is an option, right? You can edit PDFs that way and whatnot. But back to what I was trying to do is basically explain why we would even use this method, right? Why would we want to show the image? Why would we not want to show the image in other places, right? For instance, there just might be too many trees being said there, right? And I can express and communicate trees in a lot of different ways. But lastly, man, my computer's lagging. Keep going, bro. Keep going. I know it's a lot of layers. Hang in there. And obviously, hopefully on Monday, my computer will be much faster. Wow. Obviously, I could take care of line weight, basically selecting each one of these layers at a time. So for instance, the annotation note, the floors, Basically, I would just click on the outside of this layer. And in my case, it seems a little frozen. Perhaps there's maybe just nothing in that layer. Yeah, and if there's nothing in that layer, it's not going to select anything. That makes a lot of sense. So obviously, we'll select the ones that have something in them. And in fact, you could probably delete the layers that don't have anything in them. So we'll take that one. I could change its line weight. Obviously not 0. Let's go with 1. Next line weight, or next layer that has something. You can always click on the piece itself too, and realize that, well, it's registering everything as one layer. And that might be it too. Well, I don't remember putting everything in one layer. Yeah, she gave you guys a ridiculous file. So many layers in here. I would probably edit these layers in Rhino or AutoCAD first, then bring it into Illustrator, especially if your computer isn't up to par like mine today. No, like delete unnecessary lines that you don't need, right? Or that you know that you're not going to need, or like say you want to fill in all the buildings. I would hatch all the buildings first, then bring it into Illustrator. That way I can just switch the hatch, right? Things like that. Anyway, obviously change line weight. I think a lot of us know how to do that already, so I won't cover that too much. Obviously just select everything in the layer and then of course change it. Now in my case, I wanted to show you a little bit of live paint today, and that you already have swatches available to you in this program. So you'll see that there's this little swatches box. I'll go ahead and click on it and go ahead and put it within my palette. You'll see that there's a little library here at the bottom, and actually a number of patterns that we use in architecture graphics. So basic graphics, we have dots, lines, and textures. So in my case, I'm going to choose textures today and basically just put it a part of my swatches. That way it's a new tab. Wonderful. And essentially I can highlight everything and treat it like a paint bucket situation, which can be pretty nice and arguably even quicker than Photoshop in some cases. So I'm going to go ahead and take everything, every single line. Now the only drawback to this is I'd want to do my line weights first, because using the live bucket tool for some reason in Illustrator turns it all into one layer. Now that's okay if I've already done my line weight. However, if I haven't done my line weight yet, making this all one layer could actually hinder me a lot. So usually I say do line weight first. However, if you're going to use swatches, might do line weight last. Anyway, just kind of throwing that out there as a caveat. But to enact live bucket tool, we'll just hit the letter K, as in kangaroo. And quite literally, we can use our swatch. So we can just click on a swatch. And as long as the line itself is enclosed, you should be able... Oh, I gotta select everything first. And I'm gonna turn off my image real quick. And by quick, I mean very slow. I got a feeling I know what it is. It's because I masked all the lines and it doesn't know what to do. So I'm going to unmask it real quick. If I can. Select everything. Well, I don't want to make a new clipping mask. But see, if I delete, say, the rectangle that's controlling the clipping mask, usually it pops off. Or sometimes accidentally deletes the entire thing. In this case, it did absolutely nothing, so let's try that again. My goodness, slowing down big time. Anyway, thank you for your patience and of my computer today. Let's try this again. Letter K. It's not finding any closed boxes. Oh, it has a compound path. I'd imagine it's because of the clipping mask that I put onto it. So So let's see if we can take that clipping mask off. Yeah, it's definitely because of the clipping mask. My bad. Now if I could just get the clipping mask, there we go. Release clipping mask. So let's release it, let's let it think about it real quick. And we'll do the clipping mask after, because Illustrator wants it its way, and that's okay. We'll zoom out so I can get all those lines, even though we're not going to use them. But that's okay. Let's try again, the letter K. Now it should let us. No, it's still saying that it's not a closed box. Yeah, I'm not sure how this DWG was made, but it looks like actually nothing's closed. Which, that's okay, it just means you can't use Live Bucket tool, but honestly it's not that great of a tool anyway. I just wanted to show it because, well, it is pretty interesting and Illustrator does it pretty quickly. And you might find it useful, I don't know. Let's see. No, it's not even trying. Let's try something. So in my case, let's do it manually. Let's go to Object, Live Paint. Yeah, it's definitely, again, it depends on the DWG that you use, that you have to have closed lines, and anybody who's worked in Rhino definitely knows what a closed line is versus an open line, which sounds kind of funny when you say it out loud, but not a big deal. I mean, Live Paint, it's okay. It does do some cool things though. Let's try and expand it first. So I'm gonna basically just blow this up. So expand is like explode, right? So if you're familiar with explode in Rhino, expand is the exact same command in Illustrator. So I'm gonna go ahead and expand this, or explode it, and see if that works better for us. And it does. Now it's reading as a closed object. But as you can see, now I can just sort of click away on all these pieces. I can even use my arrow tools and use different colors. Now obviously these are the grossest colors I've ever seen in my life, so I'm gonna go with maybe a texture. But to be fair, I mean, it's pretty useful, especially in a situation like this where I've got maybe 1,000 buildings and I'm not gonna sit there in Photoshop and try to magic wand tool all these damn buildings. So in my case, I might actually use kind of a Live Paint layer, right? For instance, I might just print this out as a building layer, right? I may want to actually put maybe some of my own imagery in it, or kind of have just like a digital layer versus analog layer so that I can hybridize those. But good, I'm glad I was able to make it work, and you're actually going to run into the same problem because you have the same DWG file. So keep in mind that you need to go to Object and Expand. I'd probably write that down. Right? It is Friday. It is, you know, after a long week. So, but it looks like we could even get the roads or other objects. So we can get these pieces. Maybe these are all grass. And even from the get-go, you know, let's turn our mask image back on. We got a pretty cool shot. Right, at least a nice attempt at this hybridization between Illustrator, right? But as I was speaking to before, guys, I mean, it definitely doesn't give off the impression of a sketchy or progress drawing. It's definitely more the impression of a finalized drawing, right? Because of those crisp, digitalized lines that you have, right? But really, for the sake of today, that's all I really wanted to show or get started with. Right, is basically just show you how to align those up. Obviously we talked about scale, we talked a little bit about photo merge and all those different things, and of course wonderfully it's recorded so that you can refer back to it on my YouTube channel as well. That way you can always pause it and go, what did he click on, where did he mess up? Because often we find ourselves in the same position. So I don't know, I honestly like messing up too, that way you know how to get out of it. So any questions so far, guys? Anything come about in the head? Anything that you kind of plan what you want to do, but maybe want to ask how it's done? Those are also really good questions, guys, because somebody else might have the exact same one, and you get it recorded so that you can refer back to it. keep in mind, because we'll probably do this again either Monday or sometime next week. So as you're going through this process, don't just sit there for 5 hours like, I don't know how to do it, right? Write it down and say, ask Barrett next time. Like, not a big deal. And I'll see if I can tackle it too. Sound good? No questions? Fair enough? Learn something new, hopefully, maybe? Go see comes up. We'll leave it at that. Good question. Kinsley asked, how did I get to the swatches? Well, in my case, I already took it out, so it's not there. But I'll go ahead and reset this real quick. So I'm going to reset my toolbar. And it's this one right here. Looks like 6 little boxes, and it's called swatches. I'll click on it, and then I'll drag it into my toolbar. I like to have stroke in there. Layers, definitely probably my favorite tool. And you can really make it your own. And what's nice is it actually takes it out of here, right? That way you're not doubling up and things like that. To get those actual pieces, those swatches, there's a little library. It looks like a little stacked books right there. So I'll click on it. I'll go down to patterns, basic graphics, and select any of them, right? So I can take these and basically open the new tab. And then I can even select all the swatches that I would normally use. Another thing that's really interesting that I know Kuwabara is pretty interested in is color schemes. Has she talked to you about color schemes at all? That might be more of an Escamilla thing that he wants to bring up. But Illustrator has a bunch of color schemes that you can use. Gradients, foods, scientific. You're of course more than welcome to take a look at these. There's actually a lot of free download swatches. Like if you just look up free swatches for Illustrator, tons. You can even make your own, right, based on say another PNG image, and you can use it as a live paint tool. So again, arguably kind of the same tool that we would use in Photoshop, but now for vector lines. I no longer have to use a magic wand tool. I can literally just fill in the box. There used to be actually this, I don't know how many of you guys are from the 90s, but there was this old computer program that they taught us in elementary school, and it was called Kid Pix, right, with an X. And there used to be this stuff where you could blow up stuff, and it would make like all these kind of kid sounds. It'd be like, but Illustrator actually reminds me a lot of, a very advanced Kid Pix program, such as a paint system. But yeah, hopefully you can kind of see the value of this. Obviously mine doesn't look great and isn't going to look as great as how you guys are going to make these look. But I would imagine Escamilla is going for some sort of hybridization. So, just because we used a Google image today doesn't mean it can't possibly be replaced with your own sort of diagram on top, right? Whether that be the sun path, and that can make a really nice hybrid drawing. It could also make this look a little more processy rather than sort of a finished product. So that can be really nice. I'm looking at Kat. I can't wait to see her print something out like this and just draw on it, scan it back in, maybe put some nice Illustrator labels on it to really kind of sandwich it all together. Sweet. Right. I know I'm kind of talking a lot here on a Friday, but again, I'm trying to get it onto the recording that way. It's something in the background. I know how we kind of work on these sometimes is you kind of have the video going on in the background and you're kind of just sitting there trying to figure it out. So anyway, happy illustrating. Sound good? Answer the question? Sweet.